Halel and Yagel from Har Bracha. Why wasn't Shaul answered? Why was he so desperate that he went through illegal sources to make contact with the dead or the Spirit of God? The answer should be simple. I heard this in a shur from a Rav Franco in the Golan Heights in the Yeshiva of Chispin, where my in-law is a Rebbe there. Look, Shaul did not listen to Hashem. He did not adhere to the instructions of Hashem when he went out to the war against Amalek. If he didn't listen, and the instructions were given to him by who? By the prophet Shmuel. What has to be done with Amalek? And when he doesn't listen or adhere to the instructions, it's like a midah keneged midah. It's an attribute measure for a measure. When now he's looking for salvation through prophecy, through dreams, through this source or that source, he's not answered. He's not answered. Yet he receives an answer through a very defiled source, this Eshet Ov. And we went through the different approaches. Is it true? Is it not true? Is she real? Or is she deceptive on anyone? Whatever it is, the fact that she was startled, it could be that she's a blood. I heard one explanation. I don't know if it's Rav Sadia Gaon. Remember when she was amazed, she was terrified? Why was she terrified? She's supposed to be able to. Because she's never able to find. She's never able. That's one meaning. Another meaning I want to share with you. She, the Eshet Tov, was never able to really raise the dead. And now she raises the dead. Why? How did it happen? Why is it happening that I'm able to raise the dead here? That's one of the meanings. But what is the answer? Shaul is going to meet up with me. Shaul is going to meet up with Shmuel. Meaning, what does that mean? Tomorrow. At the war, you and your sons are going to meet me. What do you mean you're going to meet me, Shmuel? Shmuel's dead, isn't he? So what does it mean you're going to meet me? You're going to die. Oh. You're going to die. That's what it means. Not in a joking way. Now, in Pasuk 19, towards the end, I want to reread it again, of 28:19. V'iten Hashem gam et Yisrael imcha biyad plishtim. God's going to deliver with you the nation of Israel in the hands of the Plishtim. We're going to have a lot of casualties. Umachar ata uvanecha imi. You and your sons are going to be with me. Who else? Gam et machane Yisrael yiten Hashem biyad plishtim. The camp of Israel is also going to be delivered. In other words, we're told, I think, two things here. One, you're going to go to war tomorrow. And number two, you're going to lose. And not only will you lose, you're going to die. Now, if this announcement here in verse 19 is what we're saying, correct, Shaul is getting a critical announcement, bad news, that he has to go out to war. I mean, there's a way to interpret this pasuk, that Aleph, he has to go to war, he's going to die, and you know what? By going out to war and dying, do you know what it may mean? You're going to be with me? Where is Shmuel after he dies? Where is his soul?
He's got to be pretty high up there.
I think he's in the bleachers as well. Right? He's somewhere in Gan Eden. He's somewhere in Gan Eden. Does it mean that after Shaul goes to war, he too will be in Gan Eden? Do you hear what we're saying? That's what it may mean. It may mean that Shaul, by going to war, Rav Franco says this is his tikkun. Do you hear? Right now he's suffering because he didn't listen to the words of the prophet. And he didn't do in the war against Amalek what he was supposed to do. And what will be his tikkun? Listening to Shmuel through a defiled source of the Eshet Ov, going to war, and then you're going to be with me. Why does this make sense? His tikkun is to listen to the prophet. And if he gets that tikkun, you know what's going to happen to him? His soul will be like next to the soul of Shmuel the prophet, that he will be also in Gan Eden. Do you understand what's happening here? It's a wonderful pshat that I never realized before. Okay? In other words, his tikkun is to pay attention to the Navi. That's his tshuva. It's an interesting tshuva. Usually you think you do tshuva and you live. Here, he may be doing tshuva and dying. Wow. That's really heavy, okay? So if we say that tomorrow if he goes out to war and he loses his kingdom and he's going to die, that's considered listening to the prophet Shmuel. And if it's listening to the, I went to explain you what I'm saying here is written in Rashi. You don't have Rashi, but I'm going to ask the gentleman, the good-looking man sitting next to me. Yeah, he combed his hair. Ata uvanecha imi. You don't have Rashi. Yes, you do have Rashi. You do have Rashi. Would you please tell me the one word that Rashi says, you're going to be uvanecha imi? I circled it. What does he say? You're going to be with me. Shaul will be with me. B'mechitzati. What does mechitzati mean? The spiritual, you're going to be amidst me. You're going to be next to me. You can sit in my mechitza, I mean you're going to sit together with me inside the same area. Rashi, it's Chazal apparently. So the idea is that if you do your tshuva by listening to the prophet, you go to war, you lose the kingdom, you die, you're going to be in the bleachers with me, in Gan Eden. That's when mechitzati, here it is. Rashi says it. And it's all interesting because how did it come about? All because of this woman. That it could be that she was a bluffer all the time, and now God gave her the power to bring up the spirit of Shmuel and give him the what? The matters. Learn Le'ilui Nishmat HaKedoshim, Bezrat Hashem. Thank you. So what we see here is very interesting. He's told what the possibilities are. But right now, let's go on. What happens to Shaul? He has no koach. He falls on the floor. He's full of fear and trembling, as we learned. And what does she try to tell him, like a good Jewish woman?
Sit down and eat.
Sit down and eat. And what does he say? No, I'm not going to eat. He's going to be a refusnik. But if we go to Kaf Gimel 23, after refusing, Vayomer lo ochal, they tried to persuade him, Vayifritzu v'avada v'gam ha'isha, and now he listens. Vayishma l'kolam. Vayakom eretz, he gets up off of the ground. Vayeshev el hamita. The end of verse 23, Kaf Gimel. Now, what does the Tanakh bother telling us? What's for dinner? Pasuk Kaf Dalet 24. What does she have? V'la'isha egel marbek. This term becomes a term later on in Hebrew, a fattened up egel. Okay, a fattened up, what do they call it? How do they fatten it? What is it called? What? You know, the calf I understand, but there's a term, how they fatten them up. What is it called in English, in proper English? Oh, no. They fatten it up. They fatten it up in the pasture area. They fatten him up. This is natural stuff, gentlemen. But of course, the more meat there is on an egel, and the more tasty it'll be. Okay? You saw a word there, Ezra?
That's the word.
You asked me about coffee and meat preparation. Neither of these things.
Okay. V'la'isha egel marbek babayit. Vatimer, quickly, she does what? Vatizbacheu. She slaughters it, or has it slaughtered. Vatikach kemach vatalo. She makes bread after kneading the flour. Vatofeu matzot. She makes matzah. It's interesting, she's making matzah. Why do you think she's making matzah, not bread? And by the way, what similarity or association do you make into your mind? Are you reminded a bit similarity to Avram Avinu?
Oh yeah.
When Avram meets, he tells his wife, quickly, Maher, Lushi Vasiu Got, make cakes there. Although there it doesn't say that she did make lechem there and not matzot. It was, I think, Lot that wanted to host people and making them matzah.
Can a woman do kosher shita?
You sure? Yeah. First word of the Mishnah, Masechet Chulin, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph, Hakol shochatim. Everyone can do shchita, even you and me, if we learn. Okay? So what's happening here, Vatagesh lefnei Shaul, let's end the chapter. Vatagesh, she serves before Shaul, lefnei Avadav, and all his people around him. Vayochelu. As a result, Vayakumu, he's able to get up. Vayochol, he's able to go away. Balaylu, that night, he can travel at night tens and tens of kilometers. So we have something very interesting here. You know, you would have never expected that who is lifting up the king? This woman. This woman who as a violator and stopped doing her stuff, she gets the power to see Shmuel. She delivers the message, and she herself is the one that's giving him a revival here. He's so, out of it with no power whatsoever, no koach. Who's reviving him? Balatov. So this woman turns at the end of this chapter as a hero, a star. She's doing chesed, maybe similar to Avraham Avinu. We can't say exactly similar, but she's doing an amazing thing, and that's how this chapter ends. Isn't that amazing? Let's begin chapter 29. Okay, what did we read first about the mobilization of the forces of the Plishtim? Do you remember where we read about the Plishtim mobilizing forces? Pasuk Daled of the last chapter. Okay. Where? What did we see in verse 4? The Plishtim mobilized the forces and they went to which area?
We went up to Dor, right?
No, that's right now where Shaul is, where he meets they go up to Shunam. It says, Vayikavtzu Plishtim vayavo vaychanu v'Shunem. Shunem is north of the Gilboa Mountains, north of the Jezreel Valley. Is that correct? That's what's written here? Very good. Now let's open up to Perek Kaftet, 29. Let's read the first pasuk of Kaftet, chapter 29. Vayikbetzu Plishtim et kol machanehem afeka. Where are they camping? Afek. V'Yisrael chonim ba'ayin asher b'Yisrael. Where's Afek, gentlemen?
Right north of
Afek is more or less in the area of Petach Tikva.
Good today, huh?
You have a question?
It's very far away.
But they're
from
going,
the
they
ball.
went all the way back down. They're going back there. More people coming.
If this is written in order, we don't understand something. Namely, if they're camping, you have an answer. If they're camping in Shunem, which is in the Jezreel Valley, what are they camping now in Afek? And by the way, where in the last chapter did Shaul get the big message? In Dor. It's right before, it's opposite the Carmel Mountains. This is the Carmel Mountain Ridge. Dor is a port city or port town opposite there. So what's going on here? Doesn't make sense. Now the Plishtim are camping in Afek. So what do you want to provide an answer?
That maybe they're going back to give the story about what happened with David when they were on their way up. Kind of like,
in other words, really the first place that the Plishtim are coming from the southwest, right? From the Ashdod, Ashkelon area, off of the western, southwestern coast. They're really camping first in Afek, like it's stated here. As a result, where is Israel? The forces? Chonim ba'ayin asher b'Yisrael.
they're waiting up still.
I don't know if you know, about 7-8 years ago, this area under the Gilboa Mountains has a new name. A name change was made. The Moatza Mekom. It's a place where a lot of religious Jews like to hike there. Why? Ask me why.
Why?
Because there are a lot of springs there. A lot of Mayanot. Did we not go last summer? To Nachal Kibbutzim, to one of the springs there, under the Gilboa Mountains. We went on a water route inside the water. That's exactly where we're at. That's exactly one of the springs here in the Jezreel Valley, under the Gilboa Mountains. Perhaps you remember.
Yeah, of course I remember that.
You do?
Yeah.
It was a great trip, huh?
Oh, it's amazing.
Thank you. I told you to come. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
Okay. Gentlemen, I want to understand this. The Plishtim have gone north to Afek. I don't understand exactly why we're camping in one of the Einot. The new name of the regional area here is called Emek Mayanot. It's a new name change. It's called the Valley of Springs. There are a lot of springs under the Gilboa Mountains in the Jezreel Valley. Whether it's a bracha from God that there are a lot of natural springs.
It's like near Ksiv. You know Ksiv?
What are you saying?
Ksiv, I think it's called Ksiv.
No, Ksiv is all the way over
It's
here.
way up there.
Is northwest, far northwest, next to Lebanon, next to Rosh Hanikra. Okay? Now, I don't understand exactly why are we camping in the Israel Valley. We're so far away from them. Why? I don't know. Someone has an answer strategically. If they're mobilized forces there, maybe they have information that they're going to Shunem. That's the only understanding. It's a question that's worthy of asking. I don't understand. If they're camping here, why are we camping here? It doesn't make sense unless we know that they're on the way there. It could be. You know what? I have a theory. David, who was asked to be the bodyguard of Achish, the king of Gath, he probably sees the strategy and plans of the Plishtim, and he sends courier service to the Israel, what's happening, and where they're going to be. Now they're about to move. Pasuk bet. V'sarnei Plishtim ovrim lemeot velalafim. Sir, if you can now understand that the ministers, the officers of the Plishtim army are in the hundreds and in the thousands, what would you say about the basic army? Must be gigantic. You asked yesterday, how much do we know? Maybe from here we can prove the question you asked. How many soldiers do the Plishtim have? Well, if we're told that the Sranim are the officers and of the army, the government, if they're in the hundreds and the thousands, we can understand that the army is gigantic. And who's with them? David vanashav ovrim bachrona im Achish. Who's in the back? With the king. This is a clear point that the nations of the world, when they go to fight, they're not like the nation of Israel. Where do the kings of Israel stand in position when we go to fight a war? We go up front. That's always been the history of the Jewish people and in our modern day army as well. Therefore, if you take statistics, and for casualties, to see high-ranking officers with casualties, we're of the highest in the world. Why? Because they lead the Jewish army. They lead Tzahal, the great officers of Israel. Here, the king of Achish is in the back, and David's with him, he's his bodyguard. And now we see politics. Pasuk Gimel. Vayomru sarei Plishtim, ma ivrim ha'ela. What are these Jews doing here in our army? We don't need them. Vayomer Achish al sarei Plishtim, halo ze David. You know, don't you know? It's David, he's with us. He's the Eved of Shaul Melech Yisrael. Ashaya iti ze yamim, or ze shanim. Shanim doesn't mean that really he's there with them years. We assume that David is collaborating with him for several months. So why write the word shanim? I think the commentaries explain, if he was only there 4 months, it means he's with me 4 months. It's equal to being with me for years. It's so great to have David with me. That's what the king is trying to explain to his high-ranking officers. However, they don't accept it. Their anger rises. Pasuk Daled. Vayiktzfu alav sarei Plishtim. Imagine, the ministers are angry at the king. Vayomru lo, and they say to the king, sarei Plishtim, hashev et ha'ish, send him back. V'yashov el mikomo asher ifkadeto sham. Where to send him back to? Where is his place? Where is his place, David? Where was he placed? In Lag, which is, of course, in the southern area, the boundary of the Negev area. That you appointed him there. We don't want to have these David and his soldiers in our war. Why? The fear of the ministers is David is going to turn back against the Plishtim, and he's going to do evil to the Plishtim forces. What, are you going to be appeased by these heads of these officers that you think they're going to really do good to you? Now, we explained David is really in a bind. On the one hand, he can't say no for 2 reasons to go with the king. Aleph, he can't reveal the truth. He doesn't want to go up against Israel. And Bet, who's provided for him shelter, food, a place to live? The king of Achish. He's done everything. You're going to give him a slap in the face. You can imagine what's going to be printed in the New York Times the next day. What David Melato's with the Chicago Daily. You know what's going to happen here? Chicago Times. Okay? It's all garbage, probably. Likely against the Jewish people. In any event, you know what's going to happen? So on the one hand, David can't reveal his cards. But on the other hand, he can't go fight. Here, Hashem sends him rescue. The Plishtim ministers do not trust David, even though the king does trust David. And look what the king says in verse 5. Halozed David asher ya'anu lo b'micholot. When the women of Israel were dancing and singing and praising, Lemor saying, Hika Shaul ba'alafa vid David be'rivavotav. Famous expression, we've seen it certainly, right? That's what aroused the jealousy, amongst other things, of Shaul. Of Shaul, that the woman would praise Shaul for smiting thousands, but David is wiped out myriads, tens of thousands. So, in spite of the fact that the king thinks highly of David, he can't win. And now, how does Achish break the news? Breaking the heart of David, you can't join me for the war. Verse 6. Vayikra Achish al David, Vayomer elav, Chai Hashem. What we have said several times, the term Chai Hashem is what? It's a swear, it's a shvuah. And you might ask the question, Achish? Full of Avodah Zarah? Is making a shvuah in the name of God? So the commentaries relate to this good question. How can someone who's doing idolatry relate to the God of Israel and make a swearing in his name? So because David, this is his God, he wants to appease David and swear in the God of Israel, that's the God of David. Another answer is, they accept everything. They're very pluralistic. Idolaters accept every God in the book, including Hashem, the God of Israel, and therefore you would have thought he would not say an oath in God's name, but he is taking an oath in God's name. So what does he say in the oath? Chai Hashem, by the life of God. Ki yasharat, I know you're an honest person. V'tov be'enai, you're good in my eyes. Tzeitcha v'oacha iti b'machaneh, every time we go out and come back, you're always with me, you're great. Ki lo matzati v'chara, I've never found any lacking, any danger in you. From when? From the time that you arrived on the scene until today, I've never seen anything bad about you. And now the however. What's the however? Why am I asking you not to join us? But in the eyes of these captains, these officers, they don't want you. V'ata now, Pasuk Zayin. Shuv, return. Return to where? Tziklag. And he wishes him, Velech b'shalom, go in peace. Okay, we say too, when we depart at the end of a funeral, like right now is the end of the funeral at Mount Herzl, where thousands are there, we say Lech lishalom. The Talmud makes a clear distinction. When we are departing, bidding farewell to the deceased, we use the term Lech lishalom. However, when someone is alive and you want to wish him good, you say Velech b'shalom. We make a clear distinction. B'shalom, go in peace. Whereas go lishalom, that's your ultimate destination. The lamed there is the objective. The lamed objective, your ultimate destination is to be in the peaceful area of the Gan Eden. Okay, so he wishes him lech b'shalom, velo tasera b'nei sanav, otherwise you're going to do bad in the eyes of the Plishtim. Interesting that he's not allowed to be the bodyguard of the king. And this, of course, we see as divine what? Divine matters of God saving David. Because we don't know what would happen in another half a day or day when the Plishtim arrive on the scene and they're about to attack Israel. So Hashem saves him. It's interesting to think, people ask, what was David thinking? Okay? What was David thinking? What was he ready to do? Okay? What was David ready to do when he arrives on the scene, when he faces Israel? Do you think he would fight Israel? We don't think so. Do you think he would just turn around and start shooting them? Maybe he might be killed as well. I'm just looking to see. We can summarize and say that maybe in the life of David, this could have been the most precarious, difficult, complex situation that he was ever in. Okay? And now, the fact that the Plishtim minister is driving out David from the war, that's a great chesed from Hashem. to prevent any suspicions that he could have saved Israel and did not, and instead he would be helping the enemy. So Hashem doesn't want David to look at this. Maybe the reason it's done this way, I don't know the name of who I'm saying this. Yeah, I didn't write it. Hashem doesn't want David to deceive Achish either and save Israel. Why? Achish, like we said before, accepted David during his most difficult moments, and he saved David. To a certain extent, he gave him a place, gave him food. Furthermore, it was decreed for Shaul and Israel to fall in the upcoming war. What, is David going to be shooting at them? So right now, maybe we put on an act later on. We don't know exactly what he would do, but right now we say we'll continue with this tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem.